Yeah, I think they're going to realize, this sounded really good when we were planning it, but this is not turning out the way we thought this was going to really end up. All right. Next story. In Colorado, a former police officer gets 5 years in prison for the brutal arrest of an elderly woman with dementia. Okay. In June 2020, Austin Hopp attempted to arrest Karen Garner after receiving a shoplifting call from a local Walmart. Karen Garner returned the $13 worth of merchandise she allegedly took. When Garner did not comply with Hopp's orders, he slammed her to the ground, breaking her arm, spraining her wrist, and separating her shoulder. And we have the video here. I remember when this happened, and remember seeing this here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Now, Hopp pleaded guilty to assault. His partner, okay, and we have the pictures here. His partner, Daria Jalali, Jalali, Jalil, faces misconduct and failure to intervene charges for her role in the incident. Okay. I want to go to my panel on this. Now, this is a strange story. This may not be politically correct, but here we see a Karen getting justice. Okay. I know it ain't politically correct, but anyway, here we see a Karen getting justice. Okay. She's not the one who was in the wrong here, but I remember seeing this. And once again, this is an example of how some people just should not be police officers. And in my mind, and seeing this and reading what happened, I don't think they had to treat her like this. I want to go to Jason first on this. Jason, what are your thoughts here?
Well, first of all, I remember seeing that video here on Roland Martin Unfiltered, and I think it is so incredibly troubling. The woman returned the merchandise, $13. Mm-hmm. There was absolutely no need. I'm not even sure there was a reason for an arrest, but yes, to violently slam her to the ground. You had a female officer who was there, who was present and probably could have handled that in a different way. Instead, they get aggressive with this woman. And again, I think it becomes, and with the risk of sounding insensitive, and I feel for this victim, but it's almost like the chickens come home to roost. That once Black people start getting abused, it eventually is going to move out, and other people who would normally be privileged, they start getting abused too, because, power starts to corrupt, and then they start going, even into other communities, thinking they can do everything to anyone. And this is obviously a working class person too. This isn't a rich woman, and I don't think they would have done that to a rich woman. So there's a class element here that needs to be spoken of. Yes, she's white, but she's obviously not rich if she's shoplifting $13 worth of merchandise. So instead of actually having any kind of compassion, I'm not even sure that person, like I said, should have been arrested. Instead of having compassion, you slam her to the ground, and then you do what we're seeing on the screen. To me, it's despicable, and that guy should be in prison.
Matt, if people, I tell my listeners to check out from the Washington Post the database called Fatal Force. Fatal Force from the Washington Post documents each year police killings. Okay, and they have them broken down by race, whether the suspect was unarmed, armed, what type of weapon they had, things like this. Each year. And it's been this way for the past number of years. Each year, there are more white people shot and killed by police than African Americans. Now, we're disproportionately shot and killed by police, but there are more white people killed each year by police than African Americans. And one of the things that I ask is, where are the body cam footage and the cell phone footage of white people being shot and killed by police? I know they have them, because when you look at Fatal Force, it even breaks it down by whether there was video, what type of video. And if cable news and social media was flooded with images of white people being shot and killed by police, I think you can get the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed. Go ahead, Matt.
You're exactly right, Michael, and I think that that's important. I actually, in my career, have had more white civil rights clients than I have black civil rights clients. And I think what is one driving that is it doesn't go to the narrative that we are making a bigger deal about something that needs to be made, when in fact, this is an issue with policing across the board, to your point. What's particularly insidious about this, I think Jason covered all of the elements of the video very well, is the fact that in this case, Ms. Garner will likely have a settlement, particularly because she's an older woman, and this is particularly heinous with that element. But these are still incredibly hard cases to vindicate. What is so sad about this is looking at this video, they'll probably settle this case because of the publicity. But this is the kind of case that happens every single day where a circuit, particularly like where I practice, the Fifth Circuit, finds a way to say qualified immunity shields these officers. Jason hit the nail on the head. This woman allegedly stole $13 of merchandise that she returned. The idea that an officer even taking her into custody, let alone with force, would be justified and okay following that is absurd, right, to just normal people. But the law allows it to happen. And this is the rare instance where the officers pled guilty, probably because of all those aggravating factors. But what really needs to happen systemically is qualified immunity has to be abolished, because every day people are abused by the police in ways this bad and considerably worse. And every day they get poured out by a panel of judges who says it's okay that the officer did it that way. So until we fix the legal hurdle to plaintiffs getting justice in these cases, this will be the aberration, not the standard response to the rule.
Kelly?
I echo the sentiments of everyone here. This story hits different for me because I have a soft spot for the elderly, period. Mm-hmm. Like, you just need to respect your elders. But the fact that this woman also had dementia and she was still treated in this way is just another level of just rage that I feel on behalf of the victim in this case, white, black, or indifferent. Like what Jason said regarding how it feels like this is, kind of trickling outward away from just assaulting Black people as in your capacity as police officers. It reminds me of kind of how like we as the Black community were just warning about how the war on drugs was just, it wasn't a war on drugs. It was a very racist, insidious system of, incarceration, et cetera, et cetera. But as soon as it hit the suburbs, all of a sudden we now have rehab centers for people and things like that. I wonder what the repercussions will be once enough white people die at the hands of law enforcement. Hopefully that means we'll get some type of social work component to law enforcement. Hopefully that means we'll have some mental health component to law enforcement. Hopefully that means we'll have more a more common occurrence of people on councils, so to speak, like a police officer citizen council to monitor situations like this. It's unfortunate that it takes a white person or just a non-Black person to make change in this country. But if that's what it's going to take, then let it happen. But I'm glad that this woman is getting justice. I'm glad she didn't die. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm glad that, this is not one of those situations like George Floyd or like Sandra Bland. It is unfortunate that it happened at all. But if that is what it's going to take for some form of criminal justice reform, then, thank you, kind of.
Mm-hmm. And Michael, can I add something very quick?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to add, if I remember correctly, Colorado is actually the state or one of the states that implemented a law where they don't have a shield for qualified immunity on the state side. So if I'm remembering correctly, I think that probably played a big role into this, because there the officers don't get that shield from the state charges or on the state side in terms of civil liability. And that is instructive as it relates to what other states can do in terms of their legislatures in making sure that this is actually going to be something where people can be held accountable. Because I think Jason and Kelly hit the nail on the head about this trickling out. But frankly, you're not going to have an overall response to this until you start having wealthy, educated, well-to-do, well-heeled white people who are getting body slammed by the police, because then they'll make it a real issue. Whereas now it's always a one-off, that it is,
Right.
either a person of color or it's a person with dementia or someone else who doesn't fit the mold of the model citizen to whom this would never happen.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?